Alright, so this is going to be part 6 to what if Deku was a hunter guardian. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro.
Bow in the presence of greatness. 'Cause right now that has forsaken us. You should be honored by my lateness. That I would even show up to this fake shit. So go ahead, go nuts, go.
So in the last part, I was kind of fast in how I went over the story. So if you don't remember, we basically got done or went past the part of the Stain arc as well as the teachers versus villains and kind of the training that's in between those two different scenarios, not scenarios, but events. So in this one, we're going to be talking about the movie and how it fits within the narrative and how it's going to change drastically as it was in canon. So, like I said in the previous parts, at this point, David Shield is the speaker and has talked to All Might about it, as well as All Might talked to him about the different guardians that are popping up, that being Nana Shimura, as well as Izuku Midoriya or Deku. So, he has the information and invites them to the island, as well as the rest of the normal people that would go, as they still gonna have that kind of event that happens on Island. But yeah, so it's gonna be quite different, as the scenario on why they're actually going is a bit different, as well as Deku and Nana Shimura actually knowing why they're going there. With the inclusion of Nana, it's a bit different since she has to give One for All to someone else, or at least pass it on so that it could become stronger for, the future generations. So, like I said before, I asked you guys whether or not she should give it to someone, and obviously everyone is like, you should give it to Deku, since, well, it's the obvious choice since they've been spending so much time together. So that's what she would do. So Deku wouldn't really have that problem of breaking his arms, as the light would reinforce his body in general and he would be a lot more physically strong, as well as never really having those permanent kind of ailments, I guess you would say, or injuries like you see in normal people, such as amputees or anything like that, because I think the light would just regenerate your body just like that, or just how it reconstructs your entire body. I don't think you would be able to become an amputee as a guardian, but I could be wrong since I haven't really played Destiny 2, at least in so long, since I kind of stopped before Forsaken came out. So if I'm wrong about that, or I get some information wrong within this series, you guys can tell me down below, as I haven't really been caught up with Destiny, at least up to this point. So in the time between the last part and Island trip, Deku would have gotten the One for All quirk. So on the island, this is where David Shield would meet up with the rest of the group relatively sooner than he does before, because he wasn't really working on his quirk enhancing technology. At least he stopped, and he had no real reason to enhance it, but instead he was working on his super AI, or this new war mind, that being Izanagi, the father of islands. At least that's what I was told from a comment. So this is what is protecting the island. It's a super AI that is basically on the same level of a human when it comes to decision making and all those kind of things, but it's obviously super intelligent. So what happens is they get their introductions through and they talk about everything that's been happening. This is where David Shield would introduce his kind of role within the kind of universe of the Traveler, that being the speaker. So he tells him that he basically talks to the Traveler often, just how the speaker does, or scratch it, he doesn't talk to it, but he interprets what the light is, because the speaker, for I guess a spoiler's sake, doesn't actually talk to the Traveler. We know this because he says so right in Destiny 2, but he tries to interpret it as well as he can. And the best idea he thought was to make this AI to help with the global threat of the hive. So it goes as normal with basically Toshinori or All Might as well as Nana staying with David's shield, and Melissa takes Deku to basically look around the island to kind of see the sights as you would, because there's still that kind of expo I think that was happening at this time, so it's still kind of a big event that's for the public, but they really need to talk, that being All Might, Nana, and David. So David tells All Might and Nana that through the power of Izanagi, I'm sorry I said Izanami before, that's the wrong deity I guess, but Izanagi, the war mind, he basically has the war mind calculate the next spot and where the hive is going to attack. And obviously a major point of interest would be Island, since it's one of the places on the earth that is the most technical or technically advanced. So that's why they brought him here. They don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but they have a rough timeline. And because of that, Izanagi, the war mind, like I said before, was able to make some preparations for this fight. That being creating the, I guess, almost like a bunker system or a safe zone for the citizens of Island, so that no one will get hurt during this fight. And having one of the strongest heroes be in there, it will make the fight a lot easier. Now, this is what happens on the hive side. On Mars, where the hive are basically have their base of operations, this is where the Vex come into play. So the Vex, if you don't know, are these kind of robotic species. They're not fully robotic, as it's been theorized within the Destiny lore. I'm not sure if it was ever confirmed or not. I think it was, but basically they have this kind of bacterial kind of organism which basically controls the robotic bodies that they have, that you'll see on a lot of Vex. They have this kind of white center in a lot of their bodies, and this is what drives most of the bodies. So this is when the Vex start to attack the hive, because if you don't remember, both of these two species want to basically wipe all life out of existence, or more or less that's kind of what they want to do. The hive want to become stronger, and the Vex wants to turn everything else into Vex. So that's really what's happening. Because of this conflict that's happening on Earth, or not Earth, on Mars, it causes the kind of fleet that would have went to Earth a lot weaker, as well as making them cut their forces in half and delaying the attack slightly off course than what Izanagi predicted, because Izanagi does not know about the Vex, only the hive at this point, and something about the darkness to a certain extent. So what the Izanagi had thought was that these hive would have attacked during the day, as they are not one to really do sneak attacks at all really, and would rather just confront the enemy up front, just how you'll see in a lot of, just how you see in game really. They're not really like stealthy at all. But Island, this kind of arc, I guess you could say, or movie arc, goes similar to what it is in canon, but there isn't like the involvement of the villains really too much, except for All For One feeding the information to the hive, talking about how Island works and the different parts of the island. Not really anything to really involve the actual villains. So Wolford and the different villains from that movie are not in this. So everyone's kind of having a good time at this party, and this is what happens. Everyone's kind of in the same area, including the students, but something triggers the defense system, and this is the hive going into the area, because hive technology or powers are able to create basically rifts in space-time that let them travel across space really easily. and therefore would be able to go through a kind of barrier, so something like that wouldn't be really possible to totally block off the hive. So everything goes into lockdown, and Izanami starts sending in the troops, these kind of robotic kind of systems, or robots, basically more advanced than they were in canon, because these were meant for more combat oriented stuff instead of just security in general. And this is where the heroes actually get into it. So it's a pretty big battle with having some real titans, not titans, you know what I mean, but real strong hive here. Hive captains, or not captains, but the knights, and pretty high ranking. So they're a lot bigger than normal knights. I would say probably twice his size. So these are like boss level kind of knights. All Might and the rest of the heroes there join the fight. Deku's there as well as Nana and everyone else. As this is happening, this is where David's shield basically contacts people outside of Island to report that there is a hive attack and to send some reinforcements. So the reinforcements will be delayed since the great distance between Island and the rest of the world. So this is a big battle, like I said before. I remember there was this Godzilla almost looking hero that was there. He'd be basically going through everything as he would because he's a giant lizard. It would be basically a fire team of Deku, Nana, and All Might. Although All Might is not a guardian at this point, he still has One for All, and at this point One for All is not depleted as it was in canon, because remember there was a lot of scenarios in where All Might had to push his limit and therefore decrease the amount of time they could use One for All. That is not the case in this What If, so he has a higher time limit. Mirio, I think, would probably be in this battle, given the fact that he's so close to All Might, because he's the next heir or next generation of One for All. So it makes sense that he would be here. So Deku and Nana and All Might are in this kind of group, while there's a second group with David Shield, Mirio, and I think Bakugo. Now the reason why the other students are here is because with the connections to All Might and the rest of UA, I think they would have been able to get through, even though the sports festival wasn't a total disaster, I guess you could say. It still showed a lot of promise in the students, and that's why they were able to get to Island for this expo. So the reason why they're having this expo despite having information that a hive could attack is because they don't know exactly when it will happen. Plus, Island still needs funding from different people or different organizations to really run the place. So they really have to keep up appearances. So that's why the expo still continues. So the first fire team basically goes in to destroy really most of the kind of smaller enemies, or the acolytes, as you will. Acolytes and thralls, and some of the basically front lines. And then the second fire team will take out any ranged enemies, that being things like wizard and some of the, I forgot exactly what they were called, but they're basically these kind of almost pyramid or diamond type of things that shoot out void energy. I'll put a picture on screen for each of these enemies that I'm talking about. But yeah, so that's the team. That's what the second fire team is doing. Now, what happens is that All Might, or Nana, tells All Might to throw her into the fight. Because Nana's original quirk was float, it's really easy to do so. Combining the speed of her quirk and All Might throwing her, she's able to get some far distance. And what she does after that is she does the Fist of Havoc, which is the striker talent or the arc talent. This slams into the ground very heavily and destroys a lot of acolytes and thralls that are all surrounding her. This is also in conjunction with the robots that I mentioned earlier that are actually helping out in this scenario. So these are robots like normal robots, but they're very human-like, and I guess you could say they're almost exo-like in appearance, but not just yet, or not to that case just yet. After that, this is where Deku, he would use the Night Stalker super, and he would shoot 3 arrows onto the ground. This would blind a bunch of enemies that were there, and All Might would come in to take out a lot of them, creating shockwaves as he would punch through them. As he would clear the path, this is when the second fire team would come through: Bakugo, Mirio, and David's shield. Bakugo would create explosions in front of the wizards' faces to basically blast them. This is where Mirio would go underneath the ground and hit him with a 12% one for all punch, or 12% smash, because I don't think he would be higher than Deku when he first gets it, but he could easily do 12% without breaking any of his bones. That's the percentage I would think I would give him, as this is still early on in his development, because he doesn't get it as early as someone like Deku does. He gets it a little bit after the first couple weeks of UA, so he hasn't had as much time as Deku and canon. This is where David's shield actually uses the Dawn Blade, I believe that was called. It's the Warlock super that lets you have a kind of sword made out of solar energy and have wings at the same time. So that's what he does. He takes out this large sword and he starts swinging it towards the knights that are there. The first knight tries to block it with the sword that he has, but it easily gets cut through and he is sliced in half, and the wave or the slash that it creates goes through the first knight and goes into the second one, killing it. As more and more of these hives are getting destroyed, the ships return and they are pretty much defeated. In this battle, I would say there are a few casualties in terms of being relatively injured, although I described it as a kind of stomp because Hive just have so many people, or so many enemies, or not enemies, but so many troops that they have at their disposal. It's really easy for them to eventually hit something, such as the cases with cursed thralls, or just thralls in general, being they're gonna grunt soldiers. So I would say that a couple nameless heroes here and there would have gotten injured relatively brutally compared to everyone else. Now, I wouldn't say anyone really dies, but I would say that they're very injured at this point. Some, I would say, would lose limbs due to the explosions caused by cursed thralls, if we're going to be realistic about it. Other than that, it's seen as a relative success to the defense. Now, I wouldn't say the casualties would be very high. There'd be some, but it'd be relatively low compared to the amount of people there, if that makes sense. Now, after all this fighting is done, Izanagi would tell something to David, saying that he got a transmission from deep in space, and when I mean deep in space, I mean around Venus. And here's what it says. Well, he doesn't know, they don't know exactly what it said, as it's a language that they've never seen before. They're able to convert the waves that they got from the transmission into visible picture, and this is when they see an unknown species to them, speaking an unknown language to them. Now, the beings that they see on screen are characters that have multiple arms and have a large appearance, as well as having a almost white face with multiple eyes, and some having a slimmer body than others, and they're saying something almost scared. They're almost scared of what they're saying. They feel, or through body language, are able to tell that whatever they're saying is urgent. Now, if you understand what I'm talking about, you understand what species this is. You guys can guess, but it's pretty obvious, so I won't say it. I'll say it in the next part. But yeah, so Izanami doesn't know, or Izanagi, I keep saying Izanami, I think. So Izanagi tells David that he'll be able to crack the language in a few days, given the amount or how long the message was. They're giving Izanagi that time to really break down the language. So yeah, this is gonna be the end of the video. I hope you liked it. With this series, I'm really trying to make it a lot different than any other what ifs that I've done. It's really going off of canon, or really going off the known kind of storytelling that I usually do for this channel. But I hope you guys like it. I really do love Destiny, or at least I did. I really haven't been catching up with Destiny at all, really, since Forsaken came out. So I don't really know anything about Forsaken. So if I get anything wrong or there's been lore that I don't know of, you guys can tell me down below. But I hope you guys like this series. It's a bit different, but I always try to improve my content. So yeah, with that being said, we gotta thank the patrons over on Patreon. I'm sorry if this video sounds a bit weird. I feel like I'm sick. But anyways, so from our gold tier to our platinum tier, we have Best Kaio, Dwayne Fenn, Isaiah Perez, and Lyco. In our platinum tier, we have Panaman 8. So if you want to join them and get my videos early, you could do so by going to Comic Sans or patreon.com/ComicSansTheMan, or you could click on the link in the description. And if you don't know, we have a Discord that we've had for quite a while. Some people don't know that if they're new, so join Discord if you want. I'm there, so you can ask me questions if you want, and you could post your what ifs there, and maybe I'll pick a few to do. It's not guaranteed, but it's a chance that I might do it. So with that being said, it's gonna be the video. So yeah.